Hello, everyone. Today, we begin a journey, not through fire and chaos, but into silence, into white, into a place where time walks slower, breath becomes visible, and the world itself seems to shiver with every step. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time is it. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. So, dim the lights. Wrap yourself in something warm. Let your shoulders sink. Let your breath soften. And now, let me take you somewhere you've never been, and maybe never could go. Imagine opening a door. On the other side, nothing moves. The air doesn't stir. Not even to greet you. It's dark, even though it's day. Your eyelashes stiffen almost instantly, and a fine mist of breath curls from your lips like fog escaping a bottle. The cold doesn't strike, it seeps. Silently, deliberately, into your bones, into your thoughts. You are in Yakutsk. No, this isn't Antarctica. There are no penguins, no research stations, no howling winds over barren ice shelves. This is a city, a real city, with apartments and schools and streetlights. A city where people fall in love, eat dumplings, go to work, worry about bills, and take their kids to the park when it's only 30 degrees C. You see, Yakutsk exists in a different relationship with reality. Most of us know winter is a season, a few months of inconvenience, some snow, maybe a snowman or two. But here, winter isn't something that arrives. It's something that is. 8 months of the year, the temperature drops below freezing. For several weeks, it sinks to 50 degrees or lower. Pipes shatter, cars refuse to wake up, and metal becomes skin's sworn enemy. And yet, life goes on. The people of Yakutsk don't see this as madness. They see it as Tuesday. There's a unique silence in a place this cold, not the comforting hush of a snowfall in a quiet town. No, this silence is thick, like cotton wrapped around the ears of the earth. It presses in, not oppressive, not hostile, just certain, definite. It tells you nothing here is casual. Even sound changes. Your boots on snow make not a crunch, but a sharp crackle like tearing thin glass. Voices are muffled by scarves, and breath clouds drift like ghosts, disappearing before they can be answered. Streetlights flicker into orange halos against the ice mist, casting elongated shadows that waver like something alive. And in this hush, you begin to feel the weight of your own presence, the echo of your heartbeat, the soft rustle of your coat. You're not used to hearing yourself like this, are you? Most of us live in noise. Our cities hum, our screens buzz, our minds race. But here, your thoughts don't shout. They whisper, because that's all the air allows. Now, you might be tempted to see this place as hostile, but that would be a mistake. Yakutsk isn't fighting you. It's simply indifferent. It doesn't want you gone. It doesn't want anything. It just is. And that's the first lesson the cold teaches. Not everything in the world adjusts to you. Sometimes you are the one who must bend. Look around. There's a woman walking, slowly, deliberately, her fur-lined hood puffed around her face. She carries a plastic bag of groceries, potatoes, frozen stiff already. She doesn't rush. To rush is to sweat, and to sweat is dangerous. Moisture turns to ice. Ice turns to pain. Further down the road, 2 teenagers laugh. Yes, laugh, their breath pluming in unison like smoke signals. One of them kicks a mound of snow. The other slips, then grins. In Yakutsk, even missteps are taken with calm acceptance. You learn early that control is an illusion. The cold teaches humility. You pass a parked car. Its engine is running. It always is. If it stops, it may not start again for days. A thick blanket covers its windshield like a makeshift winter quilt. Nearby, another vehicle sits silent. The frost has consumed it. Even machines surrender here. In the distance, the Lena River sleeps, solid as granite. Its surface is a vast white plain. Beneath it, time is trapped. Frozen fish, forgotten boots, memories from last summer waiting to thaw. The people of Yakutsk walk across it when they must. The ice is strong, stronger than trust. And above it all, the sky, pale, faded, a color without a name. The sun appears but offers no warmth, just a dim, dutiful presence. It rises late and leaves early, like a guest who never really wanted to stay. But despite all of this, or perhaps because of it, there is beauty here. Not the lush, obvious beauty of blooming gardens or golden beaches. No, this is a quieter kind. The kind you only notice if you've been still long enough. There's the shimmer of frost on a child's mitten, catching light like crystals in a cave. The way street lamps glow in a halo of frozen breath, turning each exhale into a moment of art. The hush between footfalls where the world seems to pause just to listen. And in this stillness, you begin to understand. Yakutsk isn't a place people end up by accident. You don't move here on a whim. You don't visit lightly. To be here is to have chosen something, or to have been chosen by it. Many of us, in our temperate lives, complain about the cold when it dips below zero. We layer up, we rush indoors, we cancel plans. Here, cold is not an interruption. It's the background music, the operating system, the unseen character in every story, every relationship, every memory. Imagine being born here. Your first memory of winter isn't snow, it's silence, the kind that makes you feel small, not out of fear, but awe. Your fingers learned early not to linger outside gloves. Your parents taught you to breathe through a scarf, not just for warmth, but because lungs, too, can burn. You didn't grow up hating the cold. You grew up respecting it. That's the difference. That's the quiet truth most of us could not grasp, living elsewhere. And maybe that's why, if dropped into Yakutsk tomorrow, most people wouldn't last a week. Not because of frostbite or frozen eyelashes, though those would come, but because of what the cold reveals. In a place where the world slows to survive, you're forced to meet yourself. The noise falls away. The distractions melt. And all that's left is you. Your breath, your thoughts, your heartbeat echoing in the ice. Could you sit with that? Could you thrive in a world that doesn't bend to your pace, that doesn't reward urgency, that listens only to stillness? Yakutsk isn't cruel. It simply asks more of you than you're used to giving. And in that ask is a strange kind of gift. The gift of slowness, of presence, of knowing that sometimes to feel alive, you have to feel the cold. You were born here, not dropped by accident, not visiting by choice. Here in the deep chest of winter that is not a season, but a condition. You arrived into the world with the air already frozen, with a sky so pale it seemed to have forgotten the color blue. You didn't cry because you were cold. You cried because it was what newborns do. And the frost caught your first breath before it reached the air. Your mother held you close, swaddled so tightly in layers that you felt like a secret, wrapped in wool and love. Outside, the world was say, and the hospital windows frosted from the inside. Nurses moved slowly, not from tiredness, but caution, because haste has no place in Yakutia. The cold doesn't reward speed. It rewards intention. The first time you felt the air on your face, you were only weeks old. It wasn't even far, just a moment between car and doorway. But that moment wrote something into your skin, something ancient. The kiss of cold wasn't a villain, it was a teacher. A reminder that life, even when uncomfortable, is still miraculous. Your crib sat near a window with heavy curtains. Not to keep out the light, there wasn't much of that in January, but to keep out the draft. The window panes glittered with frost patterns so detailed, so lacy and elaborate. They looked like tiny cathedrals of ice. Sometimes your mother would trace the shapes for you with a gloved finger, whispering stories about winter spirits, about horses made of smoke, about ancestors who walked across the frozen earth in silence. In Yakutsk, fairy tales are not about dragons or faraway castles. They're about surviving the night, about remembering how to find your way home in a snowstorm, about spirits that live beneath the ice and whisper through cracks in the wood. You learn to walk on slippery floors, bundled in thick socks and thermal leggings. Falling was part of it. Laughter always followed. No one rushed to pick you up. That's not the Yakut way. They watched. They waited. They let you find your balance. And when you did, oh, the pride. Not just yours. Theirs too. Children here are not treated as fragile things. They are taught resilience through routine. You learn to cover your nose, not with complaints, but with understanding. You learn that wet gloves are a problem, not a crisis. You learn that nothing good happens fast in the cold, not cooking, not walking, not growing up. By the time you were 5, you could zip your own snowsuit, tighten your boots, and wrap your scarf with one hand. It wasn't impressive. It was expected. At school, the teacher kept a hairdryer in the corner, not for vanity, but for thawing frozen strands when someone's hat slipped. You knew better than to laugh. Next time, it could be you. Recess was held outdoors unless it was below 50 degrees, and even then, some kids begged to go outside anyway. Not out of bravery, out of boredom. Indoors, the air was thick and stale. Outside, your nose froze, but you felt awake. You learned not to breathe too deeply when the temperature dropped below 40 degrees. The air stung. It left a strange taste on your tongue, like metal and memory. Yet, you never complained. Complaining doesn't change weather. It only wastes energy and heat. On your walk to school, the world sparkled, not with magic, with frost. Every tree branch, every fence, every parked bicycle was rimmed with ice, like an outline drawn by winter's hand. The snow didn't crunch. It chirped, high and sharp, like a warning from the earth. And the light, oh, the light, it wasn't golden. It wasn't bright. It was soft, filtered like the glow inside a seashell. The sun skimmed the horizon but never really climbed. Shadows stretched long across the snow, and even at noon the world looked like early morning or late afternoon. Time lost its shape. Inside the classroom, coats hung thick as bears on the wall. Mittens lined up on radiators, steaming softly. Children drank warm compote from tin mugs, cheeks pink from the walk. The teacher's voice was calm, rhythmic, like snow falling on paper. No one rushed. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes, outside, are paid in frostbite. At home, evenings came early. By 3 p.m., darkness began its slow descent. You came through the door, cheeks tingling, boots crusted with ice. Your grandmother met you with warm hands and the scent of boiled meat and onions. Simple food, rich and soft. You ate slowly, hungrily. Not because the food was rare, but because warmth, once found, deserved time. Your room was small, cozy. The heater clicked and sighed like an old friend. You read books under thick blankets, your breath fogging the pages. Sometimes the windows sang, a high, eerie whistle as wind tried to slip inside. You didn't mind. That song had always been there. In bed, you listened to stories, not just from books, but from memory. Your grandfather spoke of winters where the snow was deeper, the cold more bitter. You weren't sure if he was exaggerating, but in Yakutsk, exaggeration feels like truth, because even if this wasn't the coldest winter, it still felt like it was. He told you of reindeer, of ice roads stretching across the Lena River, of times when there were no stores, no lights, only the sky and firewood. He said the cold taught you what mattered. Family, shelter, patience. Everything else could wait until spring, or until never. Outside, the stars looked closer than in other places. They hung heavy over the city, pulsing slightly, as if breathing with the frost. The moon, when it rose, was sharp and white, casting shadows so defined you could mistake them for objects. You didn't wish for beaches or sun. You didn't dream of deserts or jungles. This, the cold, the quiet, the glowing snow, this was home. And yet, sometimes you wondered, what would it be like to walk outside without preparing like a mountaineer? To run without slipping? To breathe without your eyelashes freezing together? But those thoughts passed, quickly, like snowflakes melting on skin. You didn't know what it meant to be elsewhere, but you knew this. Your skin had learned the texture of frost. Your muscles had learned the weight of layers. Your heart had learned to beat calmly, even in a world that could stop it with a whisper of wind. Most people, if placed here, would panic. They'd shiver uncontrollably, misjudge the cold, leave skin uncovered, laugh nervously at the ice. But you watched. You listened. You waited. Because you were born here. And in a place like this, that makes all the difference. Before you step outside in Yakutsk, there is a ritual. It's not dramatic. It's not ceremonial. But it is sacred. Because here, dressing isn't fashion. It isn't even comfort. It is survival, performed not with fear, but with precision. Like astronauts suiting up for a walk in vacuum. Like divers before a deep descent. And so, the day begins not with coffee or sunlight, but with layers. Your alarm doesn't jolt. It hums, soft and low, because everything in this cold is done with gentleness. Jerky movements waste warmth. Sharp gestures invite cracks. You rise, stretch slowly, and before anything else, you check the temperature. The number is not a surprise. 42 degrees. A number so low it feels like fiction until you see it every day. You begin with the base. Thermal underwear. Not the novelty kind sold to tourists, but thick, engineered layers that cling to your skin like second flesh. The fabric is tight, warm, and slightly itchy. The first whisper of the day's armor. Then come the socks. 2 pairs. Wool on cotton. One to wick moisture, one to trap heat. You don't rush. You can't. The socks must be smooth, flat, no wrinkles. A fold becomes a pressure point. And in this climate, pressure means pain. Next, the trousers. Heavy, insulated, and stiff like cardboard when cold. You shimmy into them with the patience of a monk. Then the shirt, not one, but two. First a thick cotton flannel, then a pullover. On top of that, a fleece-lined sweatshirt. You're already warm inside, but this isn't about now. It's about 10 minutes from now. It's about standing at a bus stop in wind that slices like glass. The coat is last. A parka so thick you could sleep in it. Goose down, double-stitched seams. A zipper that resists like a rusted door. It takes effort. It always does. The zipper sticks. The hood snaps awkwardly. But once closed, once sealed, you're inside. You're cocooned. Then gloves. Not one pair, two. First, liner gloves. Thin, flexible. Then the mittens. Thick, padded, and clumsy. Mittens are better than gloves. Your fingers share warmth. The logic is old, but flawless. Scarf next. Yakutsk scarves are not fashion statements. They are tools. You wrap it around your nose, your mouth, your cheeks. Not too tight. Breathing must still happen. But tight enough to trap the first breath. To let your lungs ease into the air. Instead of being stabbed by it. The hat is heavy. Fur-lined. Sometimes real fur. Sometimes synthetic. Always thick. It covers your ears, your temples, your forehead. It presses softly against your skin like a protective whisper. You check the mirror. You are barely visible. Only your eyes remain. And soon, they too will blur behind frost. But still, you're not ready. Because this process isn't just about clothing. It's about mindset. Before stepping out, you must change how you think. You cannot move fast. You cannot hurry. Rushing equals sweat. Sweat equals moisture. Moisture is your enemy. Every Yakut learns this early. You dress not for the walk, but for the wait. The moment when the bus doesn't come. When the key doesn't turn. When the door freezes shut. That's when layers matter. Not when you're in motion, but when you are still. And so, even children dress like explorers. A kindergartner takes 10 minutes to leave the house, not because they are slow, but because every zipper, every fold, every pull matters. Outside, the air greets you not with hostility, but with certainty. It doesn't care who you are, what you do, what you believe. It strips status. It levels ambition. A CEO, a janitor, a grandmother, all must dress the same. All must respect the ritual. Your boots creak. The snow beneath you chirps, a high-pitched noise like styrofoam crushed in slow motion. It's the sound of ice crystals grinding under extreme pressure. Inside your gloves, your fingers stay still. Movement makes them cold. Stillness conserves heat. Your breath curls out, hits the scarf, and immediately freezes. Ice builds on the fabric, tiny needles glinting in the weak sunlight. Within minutes, your eyelashes gather frost. They don't just look white. They become white. They clump together. If you blink too fast, they stick. So you blink slowly. Everything here is slow. The rhythm of Yakutsk life isn't laziness. It's wisdom. A learned tempo. One step, two breaths. Another step, another breath. Each movement is deliberate, almost sacred. You don't talk much outside. Words freeze in your throat. Sentences die in the air. You communicate with nods, with eyes, with the language of shared experience. Everyone out here is in the same ballet. You walk past others, all bundled, all silent. It feels like a masquerade or a procession, a pageant of survival, No one stares, no one judges. There's no fashion competition at 50 degrees C. The winner is the one who stays warm. And beneath all the fabric, beneath the masks, is a kind of solidarity, an unspoken bond. The nod of someone else who has spent 20 minutes dressing just like you. Someone else whose scarf is frozen. Someone else who knows that their life today depends on mittens and discipline. There is beauty in this, strange as it may seem. The beauty of preparedness, of resilience, of a routine that, while tedious, is also grounding. In a world where many rush, Yakutsk teaches you to slow down, because if you don't, the cold will remind you. Inside your coat pocket is a small mirror. Why? To check your face. Frostbite comes quietly. A spot of white on your cheek, numbness on your nose. You must check, even if you feel fine. Feeling is not a reliable ally here. Children learn the warning signs young. Pale patches, tingling skin, pain that turns to nothing. Teachers check their faces during recess. Parents feel their ears before bed. Yet no one complains. Not really. Because in Yakutsk, dressing like this is not a burden. It is a dance, a choreography of care. And there is a quiet pride in it, in doing it right, in protecting yourself, in being part of a lineage that has faced this cold for generations. At night, when you return home, the ritual reverses. You undress slowly, not out of exhaustion, but gratitude. You peel the layers, one by one, and with each, warmth rises. The air inside feels soft, even if it's barely heated. You hang the coat by the heater, lay the boots on the mat, shake the frost from your scarf. Your face tingles, not from cold now, but from the blood returning. And you realize you made it. Another day, another walk, another dance with the cold. Dressing here isn't just survival. It's identity. Because the cold doesn't care who you are, but the way you face it. That says everything. It lingers. It leans against door frames. It curls into corners, like smoke refusing to rise. In Yakutsk, time doesn't tick. It drips, slow and deliberate, like sap from a frozen tree. In the rest of the world, you might measure time by the sun, the bells, the schedules. But here, everything is different. You wake not because of morning light, but because your radiator clicks back to life. The sun, if it arrives, slants low and orange across the horizon, never high, never bright. At midday, it still feels like dusk. And by 3 o'clock, the light is already packing up, done for the day. You check your watch. It tells you it's 11 a.m., but your senses protest. Your breath still fogs the kitchen window. The sky outside is gray with hints of violet. You feel like it should be evening already, but it isn't. Time has simply slowed. Out on the street, the cold slows everything. The walk to work, normally brisk, becomes deliberate. People move with care, not out of laziness, but strategy. Rushing risks sweating, and sweat kills in cold this deep, so they walk like monks, like dancers. Each step calculated. Even machines submit to this new tempo. Cars idle for hours, humming quietly like pets. Trains run slower, cautious of ice on tracks. Deliveries take longer. Phones die faster. Everything is just slower. Inside the shops, the clocks still tick. The radios still play. But even here, time stretches. Cashiers speak softly, fingers thick with mittens. Customers nod, wait patiently. No one sighs at delays. What's another minute? in a place where hours dissolve like snow on a stove. At the bus stop, you wait. Not for 5 minutes, not for 10, maybe 20, maybe more. But the cold has changed you. You're no longer impatient. You're observant. You watch the breath of others rising in small silver plumes. You notice the way frost feathers form on the metal pole beside you. Delicate, white, beautiful. You feel the way your legs tense to keep blood flowing. You sense your heartbeat, steady and stubborn. The bus arrives eventually. It always does. Time in Yakutsk doesn't forget you. It just takes its time. At work, the day unfolds in soft pulses. Computers are slow to start. Conversations are sparse. People conserve energy, physical and emotional. The cold drains both, so you speak only what matters. You move only when necessary. Lunch is quiet, warm, a bowl of soup, heavy with fat and steam. A moment of thaw in a frozen day, and then back into the stillness. The cold outside never leaves your mind. It becomes the metronome of your life. Even inside, you plan ahead. How long to stand in the hall before boots are warm? How many minutes before your tea goes cold again? How quickly can you change clothes if the power fails? You begin to measure time not in hours, but in tasks. It takes 7 minutes to warm the car enough to sit inside. It takes 10 steps to the mailbox. It takes 2 seconds for your glasses to fog when you come indoors. These are your new units. And silence, oh, the silence. The cold brings a hush that is not absence of sound, but fullness of quiet. You can hear your breath. You can hear the shift of snow on the tires. You can hear your own heartbeat, like a drum muffled in cotton. Time inside that silence becomes something else. A kind of suspension, a deep pause. And when the sun sets, if it rose at all, it does so without ceremony. 1 minute it's gray, the next it's darker gray. Lights flicker on, not because it's night, but because it never really felt like day. Evenings are long, not rushed, not busy, long. People read, they cook slowly, they talk in low voices, the heater gurgles, the walls creak. Time passes without rushing anywhere. You lose the urgency of elsewhere. You stop checking your phone. You stop planning every moment. You begin to understand that nothing happens quickly here. Not thaw, not change, not life. In Yakutsk, winter teaches patience. It teaches presence. Because time is not something to be conquered. It is something to be noticed. And so, you begin to notice. You notice how snowflakes behave at different temperatures. How 20 to town snow is soft and feathery, while 45 to town snow is hard, squeaky, dry. You notice how your breath fogs the mirror differently at noon than at night. You notice the rhythm of your own routines, slowly sinking to a pace that is not rushed, but deliberate. The television blinks, a commercial, a song, a program recorded in a city where winter is a novelty. You smile. Those people don't understand. They count days by minutes. You've learned to count them by warmth, by quiet, by the way the frost curls around the window pane just before bedtime. And in that stillness, time stops being the enemy. It becomes a companion, not demanding, not loud, just there, breathing with you, waiting with you, thawing slowly like the rest of you, in the arms of a winter that has no deadline. Hunger feels different in Yakutsk. It's not just a growl in the belly. It's not just impatience or craving. It's deeper, more urgent, more elemental. It arrives not as a request, but as a command. Because here, food is not luxury. It's insulation, it's protection, it's the fire you feed from the inside out. In most places, a cold day might inspire soup. Here, a cold day is every day, and soup is only the beginning. You wake already hungry. The cold takes its toll through the night. Even under thick blankets, your body burns energy just to stay warm. You wake craving fat, heat, something solid, something primal. Breakfast isn't light. It isn't quick. It's hot and heavy. Often meat. Maybe a rich stew left over from dinner, reheated on the stove. Maybe eggs cooked in lard. Thick slices of bread smeared with butter that doesn't melt. Just softens slightly in the warmth of your fingers. Children eat before school not because they're hungry, but because they must. The cold outside won't negotiate. Their coats will trap heat, but only if there's heat to trap. You can't wrap bones in fabric and call it warmth. You have to build the heat inside first. And so, meals become a kind of layering. First food, then fleece, then wool, then outside. The market is open. Yes, open. Even in 40 degrees C, especially then. Because cold is not an event here. It's not a surprise. It's the stage on which life is performed. You walk through stalls lined with goods that anywhere else would spoil. Here, nothing spoils. The cold preserves everything. The meat is sold raw, frozen solid. Fish are stiff, eyes glistening like ice beads. You tap one, it sounds like porcelain. There is no need for refrigeration. The vendors stand bundled, their faces nearly hidden. They handle frozen goods with bare hands sometimes, but quickly, with precision. You buy stroganina, thinly sliced raw fish served frozen, not just cold, frozen. You eat it with salt and pepper, sometimes dipped in vinegar. It snaps in your mouth like glass. It melts on your tongue slowly, revealing flavors sharp, ancient, pure. This is not the cuisine of excess. This is food born of necessity, shaped by climate, perfected over centuries of repetition. Caribou, reindeer, horse meat, rich in iron, dense in texture, dark in color. Not exotic here. Common, respected. The fat is not trimmed, it is celebrated. You chew slowly, not just for taste, but for time. The warmth it brings lingers. It settles low in your belly like an ember. In Yakutia, fat is not an enemy. It is a shield. You drink bouillon, bone broth thick with marrow, salty, rich. Not for flavor alone, but for endurance. You eat dumplings, pelmeni, filled with meat, frozen outside, then boiled inside, served steaming, often eaten in silence. Food is not chatter here. It is ceremony. In summer, there are berries. In autumn, mushrooms. But in winter, everything comes from the earth or the animal. Roots, flesh, things that last, things that fuel. You eat sitting near a stove, hands wrapped around mugs, not because the mugs are hot, but because your hands need it. You pause between bites not to talk, but to feel the heat spreading. Children learn early that sweet things freeze badly. You can't carry a chocolate bar outside. It snaps like a rock. Soda? It becomes slush, then ice. Even milk must be kept in special places, lest it turn solid and split its container. Instead, you eat what the cold accepts. You develop a love for textures others might find strange. The rubbery bite of cold meat, the grainy frost on ice cream eaten outdoors, yes, even in winter. The soft, oily texture of cooked liver, the surprising crack of frozen fat. Tea is constant, not optional, not social, essential, black, strong, often with jam instead of sugar. You drink it slowly. You warm your face in its steam. You cradle the cup not like a beverage, but like a lifeline. And in this, a rhythm, a bite, a pause, a breath, a sip, again. It's not about being full. It's about being fueled. Because outside, the cold will ask questions. It will ask, what did you eat today? And if the answer isn't enough, the cold will take something from you. Your energy, your focus, your fingers. So you eat again. Dinner early, hot. Meat again. Always meat. Maybe fish frozen into thin sheets served with raw onion, or slabs of boiled horse tongue sliced thick, eaten with mustard. And then soup. There is always soup, cabbage, potato, beet. The broth is always rich, oily, clinging to the spoon. You hold it close. You let the steam touch your face. You eat with reverence, because food here is more than sustenance. It is tradition. It is history. It is memory. Your grandmother still uses recipes she learned from her grandmother, not written down, just felt. A pinch of salt, a guess of time, a pot that simmers slowly while the world outside freezes. The food carries stories. Each cut of meat, each spice, each root tells of migrations, of winters survived, of things gathered when nothing grew. You taste not just flavor, but lineage. And then, finally, full and slow, you sit back. The cold waits outside, but for now, it stays there. Inside, you're warm. Because of the coat? Partly, but mostly because of the food. You've felt cold before, or at least you thought you had. You've stepped outside on winter mornings, breath fogging, hands stuffed in your pockets, the chill nibbling at your fingers. You've muttered, "It's freezing," while scraping frost from your windshield. You've worn scarves and wool and hurried across icy sidewalks. But until you've breathed the air in Yakutsk at -50, you haven't met cold. Not truly, not intimately, because here, cold is not discomfort. It is contact. You don't just feel it on your skin, you feel it in your lungs. You breathe it in, and it greets you not like wind or breeze or chill. It greets you like steel, like sharpness, like an element with its own will. The first breath outside is always a shock, no matter how long you've lived here, no matter how prepared you are. You open the door, take a step, and inhale. And the air enters with a hiss. It grabs at your throat, not with malice, but with certainty. It doesn't just sting, it stuns. Imagine breathing in snowflakes made of glass. That's what it's like when the air is this cold. The moisture inside your nostrils crystallizes instantly. You feel it, a sudden grit, a slight crunch. Your nose begins to freeze from the inside out. You try breathing through your mouth, but that's worse. The cold burns. It sucks the warmth from your lungs, makes your teeth ache, your throat tighten. The air is so dry, it steals moisture from your tongue. It leaves your mouth parched in seconds, like you've been lost in a salt desert. You learn to breathe slowly, through a scarf. The fabric traps warmth, filters the air. It's not comfortable, but it's survival. The scarf becomes a second set of lungs. It catches the steam from your breath and sends it back, slightly softened. But even then, the air finds its way in. It kisses your eyelids. It tugs at your ears. It pricks the skin of your cheeks like needles, not sharp, but relentless. At first it's bearable. Then it's a quiet ache. Then a warning. You touch your face. It feels wooden, not numb, distant, as if it doesn't belong to you. This is how frostbite begins. not with blisters or pain, but with disconnection. Your body begins to retreat from the surface. It abandons the fingers, the nose, the ears. It moves the blood inward, away from risk, toward the heart, the lungs, the brain. The rest, it's expendable. You can feel that retreat. Your hands tingle even inside mittens. Your feet go stiff even in insulated boots. You shift your weight from foot to foot. You flex your fingers. You slap your arms across your chest. Not out of panic, out of practice. It's all part of the dance. And your eyelashes. Your eyelashes. They freeze within minutes. Every blink gathers moisture. Every blink spreads it. Soon you can't open your eyes fully. The lashes clump together. Tiny icicles form along the edges. You look at others and their eyes shine with frost, like fairy tale creatures made of snow. Children call them ice wings. Adults call them annoying. Either way, they're part of life. You don't wipe them away. You wait for the warmth of indoors to melt them. The skin cracks too. Not from dryness, from tension, from the constant tightening and relaxing. The way your face must hold still in the cold, then thaw indoors, then freeze again. Your lips split at the corners. Your cheeks chap in uneven patches. You use creams, balms, oils. But the cold always finds a way. Sometimes it feels like your body's learning a new language. One made of numbness and heat. One where comfort is rare and sensation is constant. You begin to move differently. Not just more slowly, more deliberately. You stop gesturing in the air. You keep your arms close. You walk with your hands tucked, your shoulders rounded. You don't run, ever. Running means breathing fast. Breathing fast means trouble. Even sitting outdoors, just for a moment, feels impossible. Benches are not for use. Metal becomes danger. Skin sticks to it, painfully. Skin tears. Children learn this the hard way once. After that, they learn better. Even the animals understand. Cats do not roam. Dogs move quickly, paws lifting in a dance of discomfort. Birds vanish. There is silence, thick, white, total, and still, life continues. You go to work. You shop. You visit friends. You walk to school. You breathe carefully, softly, with respect. Because breathing in Yakutsk is not automatic. It's mindful. It reminds you that your body is not invincible. It reminds you that survival is not a guarantee. And over time, something strange happens. You start to feel gratitude. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a soft awareness. Every time your lungs fill and nothing hurts. Every time you come inside and your breath fogs the window and your fingers tingle back to life. Every time you realize, I am still here. The air that burns becomes the teacher that humbles. The frostbite that threatened becomes the wisdom that protects. And your body, once soft, once unaware, becomes an instrument of precision. You learn to listen to your breath, to the skin of your fingers, to the color of your nose, and in doing so, you learn to listen to yourself. Because in a world where the air can hurt you, you must become your own guardian. And there is something powerful in that. Something ancient. Because long before there were cities or coats or stoves, humans survived by knowing their bodies, by feeling, by listening, by adapting. And here, in Yakutsk, you do the same. You breathe, you feel, you survive. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And because maybe there's a kind of quiet beauty in remembering that breath itself is a miracle. The cold doesn't just test people in Yakutsk, it tests everything. Steel, rubber, electricity, batteries, plastic, all have their limits. And here, those limits are reached and shattered daily. Technology, for all its brilliance, falters in the face of 50 degrees C. It wasn't built for this, not really. The devices that work in Tokyo, in New York, in Berlin, they beg for mercy here. They cough, they freeze, they shut down. Machines, it turns out, are far less stubborn than people. You step outside with your phone in your pocket. The screen was bright a moment ago, the battery full. By the time you reach the bus stop, the screen is black. Dead. It didn't fade, it snapped. Cold pulled the life from the battery like breath from lungs. Lithium doesn't like extremes. You hold it under your coat, against your chest. Sometimes it comes back, sometimes not. You learn quickly. Don't trust your phone to be there when you need it. Don't rely on apps for navigation, for messages, for anything urgent. In Yakutsk, memory matters. Direction matters. Experience matters. Because when the device dies, you must remain awake. People here carry phones not for convenience, but for discipline. You don't check it every 5 seconds. It wouldn't survive that. You check it only when safe, only when warm. You learn to navigate without maps. You remember phone numbers, because speed dial means nothing if the battery fails. The cold rewrites your relationship with everything digital. Laptops slow down. Screens become brittle. Wi-Fi signals falter. Anything with plastic parts risks snapping. You don't leave electronics in your car. You don't trust power cords outdoors. Everything is more fragile than it seems. And speaking of cars, they are a world of their own. In Yakutsk, cars are not tools. They are habitats. They're warmed, worshipped, and worried over. Most are left running during errands, not just warmed up in the morning, left on for hours. Idle engines hum across parking lots like a choir of survival. The risk of turning them off is too high. If they cool completely, starting them again may require hours, or not be possible at all. Engine blocks are wrapped in insulation. Some are fitted with electric heaters, plugged into special outlets overnight to keep the oil from turning to sludge. If there's no plug available, the car stays running. All night, all day. Burning fuel, yes, but preserving life. You see people with thermoses, not for tea, but for warm water, to pour over locks that have frozen solid. Keys snap easily here. Metal contracts, lubricants thicken. A simple door becomes a puzzle. Inside the car, it's a microclimate. Seats are padded with wool. Steering wheels wear thick covers. Windows remain partially fogged, even with the defroster blasting. The dashboard clicks and ticks as plastic adjusts to temperature. Nothing is fast. Nothing is smooth. And yet, people drive carefully, constantly, because there is no other choice. But while the machines wheeze and sputter, the people endure. You see them, the elderly, walking slowly across icy courtyards, not bundled in the latest gear, not wrapped in high-tech fabrics, just layers of wool, fur, heavy boots, and the slow rhythm of someone who has done this all their life. Their pace is perfect. Not too fast, not too slow. Steps placed with intention, arms folded, faces calm. They don't look cold. They look present, as if the cold doesn't push them, it walks beside them. They are the true technology of this place. Generations of knowledge stored in muscle memory, in habit, in bone. They don't check the forecast. They don't need to. They feel it in their joints, in the way snow sounds underfoot, in the color of the air. Younger people marvel at their resilience, but it's not magic. It's adaptation. It's wisdom. They know how to layer, not just clothes, but movement, tasks, decisions. They don't linger outdoors unless needed, but when they do, they don't rush. Rushing creates sweat. Sweat creates ice. Ice creates danger. So they move like the city itself, slowly, persistently, without panic. The machines break, the screens go dark, the cars stall. But the people keep walking. In offices, printers jam more often in winter. The paper stiffens, toner clumps. Yet the clerk waits patiently, taps the side, adjusts the tray, and resumes. It's not a crisis. It's winter. In apartments, pipes freeze despite precautions. Showers become trickles. Washing machines shiver. Yet the family boils water on the stove, fills a basin, and washes by hand. Not ideal, but not impossible. In schools, power flickers, internet slows, computers lag. Teachers write by hand, pass notes, improvise. The lesson continues. Because people here are flexible, machines are not. And this understanding becomes part of you. You stop trusting only in gadgets. You begin to trust in people, in their hands, their eyes, their rhythm. You learn from the old woman who wraps her bread in layers of cloth before placing it in her bag to keep it from freezing solid on the walk home. You learn from the shopkeeper who stores candles near the register, not for ambiance, but for blackout emergencies. You learn from the bus driver who leaves the door open just a crack to keep the seal from freezing shut. These are not hacks. These are survival algorithms. Passed down and practiced, proven. In the West, innovation means faster, smaller, smarter. In Yakutsk, innovation means lasting. The best tool is the one that still works when everything else stops, and you begin to see the cold not just as a threat, but as a filter. It strips away the unnecessary. It exposes what fails. It reveals what endures. Here, it is not the newest, but the most time-tested that survives. Wool over synthetic, hands over touchscreen, knowledge over instructions. And in this, a quiet truth emerges. Maybe the real technology isn't what we build. Maybe it's how we adapt, how we care, how we notice. Because when your phone dies, your car stalls, your pipes freeze, and the wind rises, you don't panic. You breathe. You think. You remember what your grandmother taught you. And you keep walking, just like her. You step inside a building in Yakutsk, not for aesthetics, not for luxury, but for survival. And the first thing you notice is not the decor. It's the warmth. Not tropical, not cozy, just present. Like a silence lifted, like an embrace made of air. But this comfort, this break from the relentless cold outside, is not a gift. It's engineered. It's battled for. Fought with pipes, bricks, heaters, and human will. Because here, architecture is not about beauty. It's about endurance. From the outside, the city looks functional. Square buildings in muted colors, faded yellow, gray, pale green, lined up like soldiers facing the tundra. Most are Soviet-era blocks, utilitarian, heavy, a little tired. They don't smile at you. They don't pretend to charm, but they stand. And in a place where the ground itself can crack walls and warp doors, standing is no small thing. You might ask, why does everything look temporary? Why are buildings elevated on stilts? Why are foundations shallow, stairwells exposed, pipes outside rather than buried? The answer is simple: permafrost. Beneath Yakutsk lies a vast layer of frozen earth. Not just soil with frost, but solid ground, frozen to depths of hundreds of meters. It never thaws, not even in summer. And building on it is like balancing a house on glass. The heat from a building, if placed directly on the ground, melts the permafrost underneath. And when that happens, the ground shifts. It slumps, cracks, collapses, walls tilt, floors buckle. The building begins to sink. So the solution: don't touch the ground. Most buildings are elevated, not by choice, but by necessity, supported on stilts or piles driven deep into the frost. The space beneath stays open, allowing air to circulate, keeping the permafrost intact. It's cold, it's uninviting, but it works. Basements, a luxury elsewhere, are a liability here. Dig too deep, and the ground rebels. So storage happens above. Water tanks, heating units, even wiring, all placed where the earth can't interfere. And then there are the pipes. In most cities, water and sewage systems run underground, protected from the elements. But in Yakutsk, underground is a trap, a frozen labyrinth. So the pipes run above ground like arteries draped across the landscape. You see them everywhere. Insulated tubes snaking between buildings, wrapped in thick layers, sometimes steaming. They rise, they bend, they cross streets on little bridges. They hum with the effort of movement. Inside the buildings, water is precious, not because it's scarce, but because it's fragile. At these temperatures, plumbing is an act of constant vigilance. Taps left dripping, just a little to keep water moving. Heaters wrapped around pipes, humming like tiny guards. Entire rooms designed not for living, but for protecting the infrastructure that allows life. And still, pipes freeze, despite insulation, despite planning, despite prayers. When they do, the problem isn't just inconvenience. It's disaster. Water expands when it freezes. It breaks metal, it bursts plastic. A frozen pipe is a time bomb, silent, waiting. When it thaws, it floods. And in a building where temperatures vary from room to room, this can happen in hours. So maintenance is not a department here. It's a mindset. Every apartment has buckets, towels, extra parts. Every neighbor knows the signs: the groan in the wall, the hiss near the valve, the smell of damp where there should be none. And yet, somehow, people smile. Inside their homes, despite the bleakness outside, there is life. Curtains drawn, kettles whistling, socks drying near the radiator. The walls may be plain, the windows small, but the warmth feels earned, because it is. You sit down in someone's kitchen. It's not grand. A small table, a few chairs, a stove that runs hot, a radio playing softly, and around it all, insulation, layers, thick curtains, double-glazed windows, draft stoppers under doors. Each one a line of defense, but more than that, each one a gesture of care. You feel it in the way slippers are offered to guests, warm from the radiator, in the way tea is poured before you ask, in the way blankets are folded on chairs just in case. The cold outside is vast, indifferent. But inside these walls, people build warmth from habit, from memory, from love. It's not just the architecture of the building. It's the architecture of behavior. And that matters. Because even the best buildings fail sometimes. The wind finds cracks. The frost pushes harder. the power flickers. And when it does, it's the people who adapt. Families move into one room, close all the doors, block the windows. They eat together under one lamp. They sleep side by side under layers of blankets. They make jokes. They tell stories. They wait. Resilience in Yakutsk is not heroic. It's domestic. It lives in the way a mother wraps her child's scarf, in the way a grandfather checks the fuse box twice, in the way a teenager memorizes which switch resets the boiler. Even the schools are designed with this in mind. Low ceilings, thick walls, heavy doors, classrooms built around large heaters, extra coats hanging by every entrance. Children taught not just math and history, but how to recognize when a room is losing heat. And then there are the corridors. Not straight, but winding. Not grand, but narrow. Designed not for show, but to trap warmth, to limit drafts, to create pockets of survivable space. You see this in the stairwells, painted in layers of beige and gray, always a little cracked, always a little worn. They smell of damp coats and cooking oil. And yet, they are filled with footsteps, every day in every season. People climb them slowly, carefully. Not because they're tired, but because they know. The floor might be slippery. The railing might be cold. The light might be out. And still, they climb. Because this is how the city was built. Not to impress, to endure. It's not always beautiful. It's rarely easy. But there's a kind of quiet elegance in it, like a well-used tool, like a song sung in a whisper. And when you walk these streets long enough, when you've opened enough doors and warmed your hands at enough stoves, you begin to understand. In Yakutsk, comfort is not a given. It is a victory. Each wall that stands, each pipe that flows, each bulb that glows is a small miracle, repeated daily. Not because the city is strong, but because its people are. Not the peaceful hush of a snowy park or the muffled quiet of a winter morning elsewhere, but a deeper silence, a slow, dense stillness that fills rooms, halls, hearts. In Yakutsk, the silence isn't an absence of sound. It's the sound of absence, and it stretches for months. Imagine waking each day under the same pale sky. Imagine a world lit not by sunlight, but by the glow of lamps and streetlights diffused through ice fog. Imagine looking at the clock and knowing it's 10 a.m., but the darkness outside insists it's night. Now imagine this, every day, for weeks. Welcome to the polar rhythm. Here, daylight is a rumor in winter. A faint smudge of orange on the horizon that rises late and disappears before you've had your second cup of tea. The sun doesn't illuminate, it suggests. And when it sets, it doesn't fall. It fades gently, without fanfare. You live in twilight, constantly. At first, it feels like a curiosity, a novelty. People elsewhere dream of cozy darkness, of days spent in pajamas. But this is not cozy. This is not optional. This is a landscape of mental dimming, where the boundaries between waking and sleeping blur. The cold doesn't just press against your skin, it presses inward. You go days without stepping outside, not out of laziness, but calculation. The weather is 47 beden wait. Your tasks can wait. Your body agrees. And so you stay inside, in the warmth, in the artificial light, in the same four walls. The isolation builds slowly. It's not dramatic. It's not sudden. It's a long, soft erosion. The kind you don't notice until your thoughts begin to echo. You talk less. You listen to music that reminds you of summer. You reread books you already know by heart. You check the weather app, knowing it hasn't changed. And you begin to crave more than warmth. You crave color. Because winter in Yakutia isn't white, it's gray. The snow, after months of footsteps and exhaust, darkens. The sky stays the color of tin. Your wardrobe, practical as it must be, consists of browns, blacks, navy blues. You forget the hue of fresh grass. You miss the red of tomatoes. You dream of green. And in this dimness, a new kind of silence arrives, not around you, but within you. It's hard to describe to someone who hasn't felt it. It's not depression, exactly. It's not sadness. It's like being wrapped in wool. Thick, warm, but muted. Your emotions, your reactions, your spark, they all move slower. They breathe less. Some call it thermal solitude. Others just call it life, because this is not seen as a problem here. It's expected. People build lives around it. They adjust their emotional clocks. They don't force cheerfulness. They don't fight the quiet. Instead, they lean into it. They bake more. They tell stories. They nap. They write letters. They knit. They stare out windows for long stretches, not waiting for anything, just looking. Children play quieter. Adults speak softer. The world becomes an echo chamber of thought. And through this, resilience is born. Not the explosive kind. Not the motivational kind. The quiet kind. The kind that allows a person to sit with themselves, truly, fully, without fleeing. The kind that accepts silence not as absence, but as companion. You see it in the way people here make eye contact, firm but not invasive, calm. You see it in the way conversations flow, slower, more thoughtful. You hear it in the cadence of their speech, as if words are carefully chosen not to disturb the air too much. There is an emotional conservatism here. Not coldness, conservation. Feelings are not flaunted. They are folded, wrapped tightly like bodies against the cold. And yet, bonds form, not through spectacle, but through presence. You sit with someone for hours, drinking tea, saying little. You share space, you share quiet, you share endurance, and that becomes intimacy. Friendships are not fast. They are slow-cooked, born of repetition, of trust built in long winters. Romance, too, moves differently. A hand held in the street, gloved, of course, means more here than a dozen dates elsewhere. A shared scarf, a thermos passed back and forth, a text saying, "Wear the thicker socks today." These are gestures of care. These are poems in this climate. And when people gather, they gather tightly. Kitchens fill with bodies, voices, laughter. Heat builds quickly, not just from the stove, from shared memory, from community. Because in a place where the outside is vast and silent, the inside becomes sacred. And people make efforts, intentional ones. They celebrate, even in the dark. New Year's lights strung on balconies, paper decorations taped to windows, children in costumes parading through stairwells. The cold outside does not stop the spark inside. Artists paint, writers write, musicians practice, not for fame, for survival. Because creativity here is not indulgence, it's defiance. It says, the world outside may be frozen, but inside, I am not. And still, the solitude returns. At night, when the streets are quiet and the snow reflects the streetlights like silver mirrors, you feel it again. That hush, that stillness. You lie in bed under layers of wool and cotton, and your breath sounds loud. The radiator ticks softly. The city sleeps. And in that moment, you are both entirely alone and profoundly connected, because everyone feels this. Everyone lies under the same sky. Everyone hears the same silence, and so, somehow, you're not alone at all. The solitude, you realize, isn't emptiness. It's space. Space to listen, to reflect, to rest. And in a world that moves too fast, talks too loud, demands too much, that space is precious. So you stop fighting it. You make tea. You light a candle. You let the dark in, not as an enemy, but as a guest. And together, you sit until the sky lightens, until the next breath, until the cold, once again, greets you like an old friend. You might imagine that in a city gripped by darkness, locked in by temperatures that would shut down most of the world, celebration would feel out of place, impractical, even absurd. But in Yakutsk, celebration is not only possible, it's necessary. Because when the world outside is a cathedral of silence, when each breath is a careful negotiation with the elements, joy becomes not escape, but defiance. A statement, a torch lit against the endless dusk. And so, they celebrate. In midwinter, when the night has become a nearly permanent fixture, and the air is sharp enough to etch glass, Yakutsk glows. Not metaphorically, literally. Strings of lights appear on balconies, strung from window to window like beacons. They twinkle not just in red and green, but in every color. Blues as deep as frozen lakes, golds as warm as hearths. Against the gray and white of the city, they look like brush strokes of rebellion. In apartment buildings, people decorate hallways, not just private doors, communal spaces, paper garlands, pine branches, candles in jars, even hand-drawn snowflakes taped to elevator walls. It may seem small, but in a place where even stepping outside feels like an expedition, these are enormous gestures of life. Inside, homes transform. The kitchen becomes a workshop, the scent of baked goods and spices competing with the steam from kettles. Butter cookies with intricate designs, honey-drenched pastries, dumplings shaped like moons. There is flour on the counters, jam bubbling on the stove, and laughter echoing off the tiles. Every family has its recipes, many handed down, scribbled in fading notebooks or passed from hand to hand in memory. These aren't just treats, they're traditions, anchors in time. And then there are the trees. Yes, trees. Real ones hauled in from surrounding forests or purchased in quiet transactions on icy streets. Some are decorated with glass baubles so old they seem relics. Others with paper crafts made by children, tinsel, lights, strands of cranberries. The trees lean. The ornaments don't match, but they shine. Because here, beauty is not about symmetry. It's about insistence. You visit a friend's home for New Year's Eve. It's a ritual, nearly sacred. The coat you remove weighs heavy, with cold, with effort, with a day survived. Inside, warmth, color, music playing softly, Russian ballads, old love songs, or perhaps a folk tune hummed by the host. The table is full, always full. Slices of salted fish, neatly arranged, pickled vegetables in glass dishes, beet salad glowing magenta beside bowls of warm potatoes, bottles of champagne standing like totems. Glasses catch the candlelight and turn it gold. Children run through hallways in socks. Cheek is pink, eyes bright. They don't feel the darkness. They feel the anticipation. At midnight, the room counts together. Not loud, not wild, just steady. 10, 9, 8, and then glasses rise. To another year survived, another winter underway, another night defied. You sip, you exhale, and for a moment, the cold outside loses its voice. There are toasts, long, poetic, meandering. Some are humorous, some are tender. Many end with a clink of glass and a wordless nod. Here, toasting isn't performance. It's a way of marking time, of saying, we're still here. And then, dancing. Yes, dancing. Tables are pushed back. Music turns up. Someone sings. Someone plays guitar. Old women clap in rhythm. Teenagers try steps they barely remember. It's not polished, it's not rehearsed, but it's joyful, visceral, honest. You see a man in his 70s, hands calloused from decades of work, lifting his wife gently into a waltz. You see children spinning, unself-conscious. You see friends clapping for each other like it's their first performance, because here, applause isn't reserved for the exceptional. It's given freely, for showing up, for moving, for smiling. And in this dancing, a revelation. That joy does not need perfect conditions. It just needs space. In the following days, celebrations continue. There is Ishiak, the summer festival, but even winter has its echoes of it. Songs shared around kitchen tables, stories from elders, cups passed in quiet circles, each sip a pause in the cold. In schools, children perform little plays, dressed as snowflakes, bears, old spirits of the forest. They rehearse for weeks, practicing lines with frozen breath at bus stops. Parents applaud through tears, not because it's perfect, but because it happened. There are no red carpets in Yakutsk, but there is pageantry. Men and women wear their best, not for show, but for memory. A bright scarf, a velvet ribbon, a pair of earrings worn only once a year. It's not about trend. It's about marking the moment. You notice how the city smells different in these days. More food, more warmth, a trace of perfume on coats, the smoke from bonfires lit in courtyards where neighbors gather to tell stories, sip from thermoses, share warmth not just in temperature, but in presence. The celebrations are not loud. They are dense, layered like the people, like the city. And when they end, there is no crash, no sudden silence, only a soft return to stillness, like snow settling after a gust of wind. The decorations stay up longer than necessary. The cookies linger in tins. The tree drops needles slowly, like it knows its purpose is more than pine. And in the memory of these days, something endures. The understanding that celebration is not a luxury, it's a strategy, a way to stay human in a world that demands endurance, a way to say, we feel, we dance, we laugh, even when the earth forgets the sun. And perhaps this is the deepest magic of Yakutsk, not just surviving the cold, but warming it from the inside out. Imagine waking up as a child in the deep heart of winter. Your eyelids feel heavy, not from sleep, but from frost. The window beside your bed is covered in thick white patterns, etched in silence overnight. You touch the glass with your fingertip, and it's not just cold, it's burning. A temperature so low it doesn't register as pain, but as absence. And then you remember. It's a school day. You're 8 years old. It's 47 degrees. And yes, you're still going. In Yakutsk, the rules are strict and strangely forgiving at the same time. For kindergartners, school is usually canceled around 45 feet of Chinese. For elementary children, it might take 48 degree. But for older students, teenagers, sometimes even 50 degrees C isn't enough. Because cold is not the enemy here. It's just part of life. You get out of bed slowly. Every movement is conscious. There's no morning sprint to the bathroom, no quick change of clothes. You layer with ceremony. First thermals, then school uniform, then sweater, then snow pants, then jacket, then scarf, gloves, hat, hood, another scarf. You look less like a student and more like someone preparing for a polar expedition. Your backpack is packed carefully, not with heavy textbooks, but with snacks, extra socks, and hand warmers. Inside, a thermos sloshes with hot tea or sweet compote. Your pencil case is wrapped in cloth because pens can freeze and burst. Outside, the air hisses against your face. You take a breath through 3 layers of scarf. The vapor of your breath freezes instantly, dusting your eyelashes, making each blink deliberate. The world glows faintly, not with sunlight, but with the ghostly halo of street lamps through fog. The walk to school is quiet. You don't talk. Talking wastes breath. You don't run. Running creates sweat. You move with measured grace, joining other children along the way, bundled and silent, like small bears navigating their territory. Footsteps crunch and squeak on hardened snow. No one complains. Complaining changes nothing. Inside the school, it's warmer, barely. The heaters work hard. Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. You enter a vestibule lined with dripping coats and steaming boots. A teacher greets you, inspecting faces for signs of frostbite. Your cheeks are red, your hands stiff, but you're here. That's enough. The school day begins not with announcements or national anthems, but with defrosting. Coats come off slowly. Gloves are set on radiators. Scarves unwrapped with caution. Steam rising as snowflakes vanish. Children shake their heads to loosen the ice from their hats, like dogs emerging from water. The classroom smells of damp wool, ink, and porridge. Desks are lined with thermal mats to protect arms from cold surfaces. Teachers speak gently, as if preserving energy with every word. The blackboard squeaks sharply. Chalk moves differently in this dry air. Pens still don't work, so pencils dominate. You write slowly, fingers stiff. Lessons proceed with rhythm. Not the fast, bright pace of cities far away, but a slower, more rooted cadence. Subjects are covered thoroughly. There's no rush. Yakutian education understands the value of process. Between classes, the hallways fill with laughter, not loud, but real. Children comparing frost patterns on their jackets. Girls fixing braids that stiffened under hats. Boys bragging about who walked farther through the cold. In the bathrooms, water flows warm, but only sometimes. Pipes are fickle. Hand dryers barely hum. Most students dry hands on sleeves and move on. It's not inconvenience. It's normal. There are no fire drills in January. The doors might freeze. The stairs might ice. Emergencies are handled with plans born from generations of realism. If anything serious happens, children stay inside. Always inside. Lunchtime arrives with joy. Food is brought from home, carried in thermal containers, or purchased from a small kitchen at the back of the school. Meals are simple. Soups, boiled meat, potatoes, black bread. Rich, hot, filling. You sit with classmates, bowls steaming, faces flushed. Conversation is soft. Movement is slow. Everyone savors warmth like a rare treat. After lunch, classes resume. Sometimes there's music, plinking piano keys, songs about springtime that feel like distant memories. Sometimes literature, stories of endurance, of cold, of the land. And yes, math. Always math. In art class, you draw with crayons too dull and hard, warmed briefly in your hands before they're pliable enough to color. The images you create, not beaches or palm trees. They are horses in snow, stars over dark forests, mothers in fur coats, holding lanterns. You paint what you live. When the final bell rings, there is no rush for the door. Students layer again, slowly. It takes nearly as long to dress for the trip home as it did to get there. Hats pulled tight, scarves checked by teachers, zippers secured like armor. Outside, darkness has already fallen. It's only 3:30. The walk home is even quieter. Lights blink in windows. Smoke curls from chimneys. Snow creaks under feet. Inside each building, families wait. Radiators hiss. Soup simmers. Homework beckons. But for now, you walk. And as you walk, you realize something. This isn't strange. This is school. This is your childhood. This is normal. In a city where survival is a shared habit, education is not just academic. It's moral. It's practical. It teaches not just letters and numbers, but endurance. It tells you this world is cold and you are not fragile. You are here. You learn. You grow. And tomorrow, if it's 46 degrees, you'll go again. Not because it's easy, but because it's what you do. Because this is what it means to study in the coldest city on earth. And because here, knowledge is not just power, it's warmth. In most places, cold is weather, a forecast, a number on a screen. But in Yakutia, cold is culture. It's not just a backdrop to life. It's not just a thing to be measured in Celsius or felt on the skin. It's a presence, a force, a quiet deity, something to be respected, spoken to, and sometimes feared. Here, people don't say it's cold. They say Haras Khan. The cold is visiting. The phrase carries weight, not just linguistically, but emotionally. Because in this corner of the earth, where temperatures drop to 60 degrees sign and stay there, cold isn't something that passes through. It lives here. It belongs here. And the people who have lived with it for centuries, especially the Sakha, the native people of Yakutia, have never treated the cold as an enemy. They've treated it as a god. In the old tales, the cold is a spirit, not evil, but commanding. A being of discipline, of tests. It doesn't kill without cause, but it doesn't forgive mistakes. Children grow up hearing stories of Ai, the spirits of nature, and how they govern everything, the forests, the rivers, the animals, and yes, the cold. In one story, the Frost Father walks across the land each winter, wrapping the world in stillness. He carries a staff that freezes the rivers and silences the birds. His breath turns the air to silver. He visits every home. If the fire is strong, he leaves. If it's weak, he lingers. This isn't superstition. It's memory encoded in myth. A way of passing on caution. A way of teaching survival. You see it in everyday language. To no one brags about surviving the cold. That would tempt it. That would disrespect it. Instead, people speak humbly, with phrases like, "It's stronger today," or "We'll see if it eases tomorrow." The cold is addressed like an elder, a guest, a force not to be challenged, but endured. This humility is cultural. It shapes the way people walk, talk, and even dream. In Saka tradition, dreams are messages, and dreams set in snow often mean transformation. To dream of walking across ice is to test your soul. To dream of fire in the snow means you have found inner warmth, strength. You walk through a small village outside Yakutsk. The houses are made of wood, low and thick, with smoke rising from every chimney. Outside one, a woman has left a small bowl of milk on the windowsill. It's an offering, not to any one god, but to the cold itself, a way of saying thank you for sparing the children, for letting the fire burn, for not pushing harder than it did. This sense of coexistence runs deep. The Saka people developed entire cosmologies around duality, warmth and cold, light and dark, body and spirit. The cold is not the opposite of life. It's its measure. You know you're alive because you feel the cold. You move through the world with it, not against it. In Izyak, the summer festival, when people dance, eat, and celebrate the return of warmth, the cold is not mocked. It is remembered. It is honored in absence and in the art. Oh, the art. You find it in carvings, where winter horses gallop through storms. In textiles, where geometric patterns mirror snowflakes. In jewelry, where silver glints like ice under the moon. The aesthetic here isn't born of luxury. It's born of temperature, texture, necessity. The clothes worn by elders, fur-lined tunics, belts of carved bone, boots with thick felt soles, are not just beautiful. They are ancestral. Each stitch is a code. Each pattern speaks of snow, of spirit, of survival. Even language reflects this relationship. Yakut has over a dozen terms for different types of cold. There's the kind that stings, the kind that soaks, the kind that whistles through cracks. There are names for the day the frost returns, and for the day it lets go. These aren't poetic flourishes. They're tools, because if you name the cold properly, you know how to meet it. And there's humor, too. Dry, quiet, enduring. It's warm today, someone says with a straight face as the thermometer reads 38 degrees. You both chuckle, not because it's funny, but because you understand. There's pride in this language, not bravado, not challenge, but knowledge, memory, a sense that you are part of something older, colder, stronger. You visit a museum in Yakutsk. It's small, quiet. Inside, a collection of artifacts, reindeer harnesses, carved talismans, snowshoes made of rawhide and birch. In one corner, a display of masks used in rituals to ask the spirits for warmth, or at least for mercy. You linger at one. It's made of fur and bone, with eyes hollow and wide. It looks startled, or perhaps aware. It speaks of watchfulness, of a people who understand that nature is not gentle, but that gentleness can still exist within it. You think of modern life, of thermostats and climate control and electric blankets, of cities where winter is an inconvenience, a delay, a closed road. And you realize Yakutsk isn't behind. It isn't primitive. It's precise. It's honest. It looks the cold in the eye and lives anyway. And the culture that grows from that is unlike any other. It's a culture of quiet strength, of shared silence, of deep, slow resilience. A culture that doesn't decorate the cold, but honors it. That doesn't fear death, but remembers it's always nearby and lives more fully because of it. You leave the museum. The air outside slaps your face, not cruelly, just to remind you. The snow squeaks underfoot. The sky is vast and pale. Somewhere, A dog barks once, then falls silent. You pull your scarf up higher, and as you walk, you don't just think about the cold. You feel it walking beside you, a spirit. A presence, a story, not told in books, told in breath, in frost, in survival. And in every step you take, you say, I am still here. In places where the sun is reliable, where seasons behave, where comfort is expected, belief often reaches upward, radiant and expansive. But here, in Yakutia, where the earth stays frozen year-round and breath curls into crystals, faith turns inward, downward, deeper. Because in this land, spirituality isn't about escape. It's about endurance. Yakutia holds layers of belief, some brought by outside forces, others rooted like permafrost in the soil of the Saka people. And like the climate, this spirituality is not flamboyant. It's quiet, patient, practiced. Step into a wooden house at dusk. The wind howls outside, brushing against the walls like an ancient hand. Inside, a family gathers around a small table. On the wall, a modest icon, a painted face of a saint, golden and calm. Below it, a shelf with matches, a candle, maybe a bowl of water. This is not a shrine in the traditional sense. It's more like a corner of resilience. Orthodox Christianity came to Yakutia with the Russian Empire centuries ago. It brought icons, churches, rituals, names. And in many towns, you'll see the domes, rising like winter moons over the treetops. Blue, gold, sometimes peeling with time. Inside, the scent of beeswax and stone. A silence that feels older than language. Services are not crowded, but they're attended, especially in winter. Because winter makes you remember things. It makes you ask quieter questions. It makes you aware of how small the body is and how large the sky. But beneath the layers of orthodox practice, older roots remain. The Saka people carried with them an animistic worldview, one where everything is alive. The tree, the river, the wind, the cold, the fire, and especially the spirits, called Yi or Ai. These aren't gods in the Western sense. They're guardians, forces, some benevolent, some mischievous, all present. There's the spirit of the home, who must be respected with quiet mornings and clean thresholds. There's the spirit of fire, who dislikes shouting, especially near the stove. There's the spirit of the forest, who listens more than he watches. And yes, there is the cold one, a presence that arrives each year not as punishment, but as test. You might ask, do people believe in these spirits? The answer is more complex than yes or no. It's not about doctrine. It's about rhythm. You don't need to believe in the cold one to nod at the frost on your window and say, softly, not too strong today, I hope. You don't need to believe in the fire spirit to whisper, thank you, when the wood catches flame on the first try. It's less about belief, more about relationship. A relationship with forces larger than yourself. With the cold, with the dark, with survival. In summer, the great festival of Isiak celebrates light, fertility, renewal. It's a time of dancing in the fields, of milk rituals, of fire circles and songs that reach the stars. People wear white. Girls braid flowers into their hair. Men raise toasts to the sun. But in winter, the rituals turn inward. There are no processions in the snow. No loud chants. Instead, there is repetition. You light the fire the same way your grandmother did. You stir the soup in a clockwise motion. You cross yourself before stepping onto ice. Even atheists do these things, not from superstition, from memory, because in this land, ritual is a form of resistance to do the same thing every day in a place that changes so little, where the sky stays gray, where the wind doesn't ease, where time itself seems frozen. That is devotion. There are prayers, yes, but also silences that feel like prayer. A man shoveling snow from the roof, his breath rising like incense. A woman setting out seeds for birds, even in 45 Decai. A child placing a mitten over the radiator, checking it carefully like a sacred task. Faith is not loud here. It's tucked inside gloves, simmering in soup pots, glimmering in frost patterns. And when people gather, for funerals, for weddings, for blessings, they do so with layers. Not just coats, but history. Not just scarves, but stories. You attend a small wedding in a village hall. The bride wears white boots lined with fur. The groom's coat is new, pressed, his hair carefully combed. The priest offers blessings in Russian. The elder, standing nearby, mutters a Saka verse about unity, two trees growing close enough that their roots sleep in the same frost. Afterward, there's vodka, laughter, songs. Not religious songs. Not exactly, but full of longing, full of distance and reunion. The kind of songs that hold both joy and sorrow in equal measure. And in the corners, the old women nod in rhythm, sipping slowly, watching the snow pile higher outside the window. They have seen many winters. They've buried friends in snow too hard to dig by hand. They've baptized babies in cold water heated over stoves. They've lit candles in storms that took the roof off the church. Their faith is not spoken. It's worn. In the creases of their eyes. In the way they tuck their shawls. In the fact that they are still here. And that, perhaps, is the heart of spirituality in Yakutia. Not the words you say, but the warmth you make. Not the gods you name, but the life you keep breathing, even when everything tells you to stop. You step outside after visiting such a home. The air is sharp. The sky is gray. And you whisper, not a prayer exactly, just a breath, just a wordless agreement with the world. I'll keep going. And the cold, ever present, nods in return. The deeper you go into Yakutia, past the frost-bitten roads, beneath the quiet skyline, through the tightly sealed doors of homes pressed against the cold, the more you realize this place does not just build walls to keep the cold out. It builds warmth to keep people in. And that warmth, that invisible pulse of human connection, is the true soul of Yakutia. It doesn't shout. It doesn't glow on brochures. It doesn't come wrapped in flags or formal traditions. It lives in how people live, in the way doors are opened, in the way soup is served, in the way a stranger is never a stranger for long, because survival here has always depended on others. You step into a home. The entryway is a small, sealed chamber, a timbre where the cold is stripped away piece by piece. First your coat, then your boots, then your hat, scarf, gloves. The outer self, the winter self, slowly removed until you're just you, standing in the warmth, blinking at the light. Come, they say. The table fills, not with extravagance, but with insistence that you must be fed, that you must be warm, that you are part of the home now, even if just for an hour. Hospitality here is not optional. It is moral. A code so deeply woven into the fabric of daily life that to ignore it would feel like a betrayal of the land itself. not a command, an invitation. And you sit. A table is already being set. You said you weren't hungry. It doesn't matter. You are there. Therefore, you eat. It begins with tea. Always strong black tea in thick glass cups, sometimes with a sugar cube, sometimes with jam, sometimes with milk that has just begun to boil, releasing a soft, sweet scent. Then food, slices of meat, black bread, cold fish, slightly salty, pickles, stew, pancakes, sour cream, warm potatoes, hot soup, more tea. Because in a place where the wind can kill you, where a missed ride or a failed heater can mean the end, people know we survive together, or we don't survive at all. The Yakut concept of respect is quiet, but vast. It is felt in how people lower their voices when the elderly speak, in how they avoid direct contradiction in conversation, in how they offer food, drink, warmth, again and again, even when you decline. This is not politeness for show. It is a kind of moral architecture, one built for long winters, one that does not assume tomorrow. And family here is not just biological, it's circumstantial, chosen, remembered. If you were raised in Yakutsk, your childhood was likely shared among cousins, neighbors, friends of your parents. You moved from house to house like breath, welcomed, expected, fed. Elders are not just respected, they are consulted. They carry weather in their bones. They carry time in their stories. Their advice is never urgent, but always final. A grandmother sits in a warm room, knitting slowly, speaking only when silence grows thick. Her words don't fill space, they shape it. Children are taught not just obedience, but contribution. Not through chore charts or punishments, but through participation. A 5-year-old learns to bring in firewood, not because it's cute, but because someone must do it. A teenager fixes the lock on the barn. A parent doesn't thank them. They nod. It is understood. Responsibility is not burden. It is belonging. You meet a family of 4, parents, 2 children. They live in a modest apartment on the edge of town. The father works in maintenance. The mother is a teacher. The children attend school a few kilometers away, walking when the weather allows, riding when it does not. Their home is filled with warmth, not just from radiators, from habits. The way slippers are placed neatly at the door, the way the kettle is always filled, the way a photo of the grandfather, lost years ago, still sits beside the bread box. His hat still hangs by the door. They keep it there for memory, but also for comfort. Because absence here is not emptiness. It is presence in another form. When someone dies in Yakutia, the mourning is not loud. It is layered. Meals are shared. Stories are told. The person becomes part of the home, part of the rhythm. Their name is spoken less, but felt more. And so it is with life. Nothing is fast. Friendship takes time. Love takes time. Forgiveness takes time. People don't move through emotions like checklists. They carry them like water, heavy, necessary, slow. Arguments happen, of course, but rarely in public, rarely with heat. Anger in a place like this must be earned. And if earned, it must be thawed. It must be softened before it is released. You begin to notice things. How people always walk slightly behind the elderly, never ahead. How a guest is offered the seat farthest from the door. How birthdays are celebrated not with gifts, but with food and time. How neighbors shovel each other's snow without asking. how everyone knows who lives in the building and who used to, because memory too is part of the soul. And when spring finally comes, slowly, reluctantly, the community shifts again, not into something different, but into something revealed. Doors open more often, children shout louder, markets fill. But the warmth, the human warmth, does not come with the season. It was always there, underneath, quiet, stubborn, resilient. You realize the cold didn't drive people apart. It pulled them together. It taught them patience. It taught them generosity. It taught them that strength is not hardness. It is holding. Holding space, holding hands, holding on. In Yakutia, people are not defined by what they withstand. They are defined by what they offer, despite it. And that, more than anything, is the soul of this place. It is not frozen. It is forged. In most cities, technology is the hero. It's sleek, efficient, always promising more. Faster delivery, smarter homes, thinner screens. Progress is measured in megabytes and microchips. But in Yakutsk, technology plays a different role. Here, it is not savior. It is assistant. Useful, yes, but never enough on its own. Because in this land of deep frost and slow time, people know wires can freeze, screens can die, apps can crash, but old knowledge passed hand to hand, mother to daughter, grandfather to grandson, that endures. And so, the people of Yakutsk live in a balance, a delicate braid of the ancient and the modern. You walk into a home on a winter afternoon. The walls are thick, the windows double glazed. There's Wi-Fi, a flat screen TV, a microwave humming in the corner. The table holds a smartphone, a tablet, a pot of soup. In the corner hangs a fur coat, handmade, stitched by hand, lined with reindeer hide. It smells faintly of smoke, of snow. That coat, that seemingly primitive piece of clothing, is worth more, functionally, than the phone, because if the power goes out, one will keep you warm. The other will become a mirror. People here use technology wisely, not because they mistrust it, but because they understand its limits. Take cars. Almost every car in Yakutsk is modified, heavily. Battery warmers, engine heaters, insulated hoods, remote starters connected to timers. Cars are often plugged into electric posts overnight, their cords trailing like lifelines across the snow. Many vehicles run for hours each day without ever being driven, kept on to stay alive. It's not about waste. It's about reality. And still, people carry old tricks. A candle and a lighter in the glove box. A wool blanket under the seat. A piece of cardboard to kneel on if they must fix something outside. Because technology is a layer, not a replacement. Inside homes, the heaters are modern. Thermostats blink. Radiators hum. But the stove is wood-fired, just in case. The lights are LED, but the candles are always nearby. The freezer is full of meat, but the snow-packed balcony serves as backup refrigeration when temperatures drop too low for the appliance to function correctly. Even communications walk this tightrope. Everyone has smartphones, messaging apps, social media. But important things, really important things in Naitan, are often still delivered in person. A neighbor knocks on your door not to text you, but to tell you, the bus won't run tomorrow. The water pressure is low. Someone slipped on the stairs. It's 55 feet missing tonight. Don't go out. Community moves faster than notifications. Children do their homework on tablets, but they still learn how to make kindling. how to boil water if the pipes freeze, how to walk on ice without falling, how to read the sky when the forecast fails. Because in this place, survival is not taught through devices. It's taught through rhythm, through ritual, through doing. The local shops reflect this duality. You can buy a high-tech parka made in Germany, lined with synthetic insulation and designed by engineers. Or you can buy a hand-stitched fur coat from a Saka woman at the market, crafted over weeks with traditional knowledge. Which is better? Depends who you ask. The coat might cost more. The parka might be lighter, but in 50° C, the real test is not price, it's persistence, and tradition often wins. Technology is adapted, not adopted wholesale. Electric kettles are common, but people still keep samovars, traditional tea urns, not as decorations, but as reliable, heat-retaining vessels that don't depend on the grid. Satellite dishes blink from rooftops, but stories are still told by the fire. Wi-Fi works well, but many homes have shelves of books, actual books, with curled pages and notes in the margins. And while schools use projectors, digital boards, and online materials, they also teach local history through oral narratives, bringing elders into classrooms to share what can't be Googled. Modernity has arrived, but it hasn't erased the past. It has joined it. In one home, you see a grandmother using an old sewing machine with a foot pedal. No electricity needed. She hums while sewing. Next to her, a grandchild plays a video game, fingers tapping fast. Two worlds, side by side. No conflict, just coexistence. There's something humbling about that, because in most cities we assume that new is better, that old means backward. But here, people know, when the storm comes, the touchscreen might fail, the satellite might vanish, the app might crash, and so they keep the matchbox close, the kettle filled, the hands trained. Technology is embraced, but not worshipped. It is trusted, but verified. You meet a man who works in IT, servers, networks, systems. He tells you proudly how many companies he helps run. But when the cold front came last year and the town lost power for a day, he says, "I made fire, I boiled tea, I played chess with my son." He smiles. Not bitter, not ironic, just complete, as if knowing both worlds makes him stronger. And maybe that's the lesson. Not to reject technology, not to fear it, but to anchor it in wisdom. To pair the satellite with a story, the battery with a blanket, the app with a memory. In Yakutsk, technology is not the heart of life. It is the glove. The heart still beats underneath. Steady, warm, human. In most of the world, economics is about numbers. Supply, demand, productivity, GDP. But in Yakutsk, the economy has another, quieter variable that sits in every ledger, walks into every workplace, and waits outside every deal. Cold. Not metaphorical cold. Not a market dip or a chilly forecast. Real cold. Bone deep. Relentless. Predictable only in its severity. And in this climate, every job is shaped by it. From the miners who dig beneath the frostbitten soil, to the grandmothers who sell frozen fish like porcelain figurines on open-air tables, the economy of Yakutsk is less about competition and more about adaptation. Let's begin at the foundation. The earth. Yakutia is vast. Under its frozen crust lies treasure. Diamonds, gold, coal, natural gas. The Republic of Sakha, Yakutia, is one of the richest mineral regions in all of Russia. But accessing those riches is a war against geology. The permafrost, frozen ground that doesn't thaw, makes digging a long, slow labor. You don't just excavate, you melt. Work starts early, sometimes in darkness. Miners descend into shafts warmed artificially, their breath fogging up visors. Machines groan against ground that fights back with centuries of ice. In the diamond mines of Mirny, not far from Yakutsk, men and women work in rotations, weeks on, weeks off. They earn well, but they earn it against odds most people can't imagine. Mechanical failures in 50 degrees C, unpredictable frost shifts, isolation that stretches both body and mind. The money is good, the pressure higher. For many families, these wages are what keep the house heated, the pantry full, the boots new. But not everyone works in mining. The city itself hums with smaller economies, quieter, but just as shaped by the cold. Take the street vendors. In December and January, you walk through the open-air market. No need for freezers. The entire city is one. Here, you see tables lined with frozen fish, not bagged, not boxed, laid out like jewels. Their eyes are clear. Their scales shimmer. They are frozen solid without effort, preserved by the air itself. There's no melting, no spoilage. You can knock on them gently. They sound like wood. Each one tells a story. Caught from rivers like the Lena, cleaned and frozen within minutes. Transported not in trucks with ice, but in baskets through the winter air. Nearby, reindeer meat is sold in slabs. Horse meat, fatty and rich, sits next to jars of frozen berries, cloudberries, lingonberries, tiny jewels encased in frost. Sellers wear thick mittens. They don't call out to customers. They nod. They wait. The market is quiet but constant. Transactions are quick, not because of urgency, but because of temperature. Money exchanges hands through layers. Bags are handed over with practiced precision. Every product has two prices in winter: cost and cold. How far it came, how long it sat, how well it's lasted. Even fruits, when available, are different. Apples from other regions are more expensive, not because they're rare, but because getting them here through frozen roads and flight delays takes planning. Local produce, hardy cabbages, onions, root vegetables remain essential, stored in cellars, packed in snow, preserved with ancestral know-how. In the evenings, delivery workers race against the cold, not on bikes, but on foot or car. Apps ping with orders for hot meals. The restaurants stay open late, kitchens foggy with steam. The drivers bundle up, run from car to door with bags of food still warm. A moment's delay, and the soup begins to slush. A failed heater in the car means the entire shift is compromised. Technology helps, but only so far. In offices, heating systems hum constantly. Employees bring extra shoes, one pair for outside, one for the office. Coats hang like curtains near every entrance. Tea is brewed in every room. It's not just habit, it's infrastructure. Jobs are chosen with climate in mind. Construction pays well, but pauses in deep winter. Retail is stable, but relies on indoor foot traffic, which varies by blizzard. Teaching is secure, but school closures happen without notice when temperatures drop past the danger point. Many turn to crafts and trades. Seamstresses make fur hats that outlast seasons. Artisans carve from mammoth ivory, found in the permafrost as the land slowly reveals its dead. Mechanics specialize in winter modifications, battery warmers, antifreeze blends, tire chains. Even in government offices, work is punctuated by practicality. Meetings are rescheduled due to ice storms. Heating repairs take precedence over policy discussions. The mayor might be seen helping clear snow outside City Hall, not as theater, but because no one is exempt from winter. For the self-employed, every choice includes cold calculus. Can you run your kiosk today? Will your car start? Can your goods survive the open air? The frozen economy rewards foresight, but it also values community. Barter still happens. You fix a neighbor's heater. They bring you fish. You lend your generator. They shovel your stairs. Small favors accumulate like firewood. And then there's the ceremonial economy. Weddings, funerals, New Year celebrations. These are not cheap, and they are never small. Even in the deepest cold, families gather. Gifts are given. Food is shared in excess. Why? Because the cold takes enough. So on these days, people give more. They hire musicians. They buy rare ingredients. They rent halls, even if only a few can attend. It's not show. It's defiance. And through it all, Yakutsk keeps moving. Trucks arrive with goods from Irkutsk, from Moscow, from China. Planes bring electronics, medicines, oranges. People go to work. Children go to school. Life continues, not because it's easy, but because it's learned. The economy of Yakutia is not one of boom and bust. It's one of freeze and thaw, of stockpiling, of patience, of knowing that sometimes the value of something isn't its price. It's whether it works at 55 Fibonacci, whether it warms your hands, whether it lasts. And maybe that's the most important currency here. Endurance. Quiet, constant, invaluable. Like the cold. Like the people. In Yakutsk, death rarely arrives with drama. It comes quietly, a slow process, a gradual erosion. A body freezes fast, yes. But a soul takes longer. And that is perhaps the cruelest truth of this place. The most dangerous risks aren't the ones you see. They're the ones you carry. Here, survival isn't just about layers of clothing or working radiators. It's about something deeper, something quieter, something that lives behind the eyes. It begins with frostbite. It's common, familiar, not just to the homeless or reckless, but to anyone who underestimates a walk. A hand exposed for too long while searching for keys. A cheek left uncovered. A finger that stays still inside a glove for a moment too long. Frostbite doesn't announce itself with searing pain. It arrives as numbness, then silence, then discoloration. First, white, then gray, then blue. By the time pain comes, the damage is often done. But frostbite is understood. It's named, recognized, treated. The deeper threats, they aren't. Hypothermia is one of them. It doesn't just strike those lost in snowdrifts. It can begin inside homes, poorly heated, windows cracked, bodies exhausted. The body shivers, then stops. The mind slows. Thoughts wander. Sleep arrives too early, too easily. It feels like peace. That's the trick. It feels like rest, but it's the kind that doesn't end. And yet, people here know this. They prepare. They check on neighbors, especially the elderly. They knock, even when not invited. They trust instincts. If someone doesn't answer the phone, they go. Not tomorrow. Now. Because silence here is not just quiet. It's a signal. But while the body is vulnerable, the mind is often more so. Winter lasts 8 months. The sky stays gray. The sun is a rumor. Daylight comes late, leaves early. Sometimes it feels like it never arrived at all. In this dimness, something shifts inside people. And at first it's subtle. A delay in speech, a longer pause before responding. A sense that days blur, the time folds in on itself. Then The signs sharpen. A reluctance to leave the house, even for things once enjoyed. A withdrawal from touch, from noise, from light. And then, wait. Not on the chest, but behind the eyes. Behind the ribs, a kind of quiet dread. Doesn't come with tears. It comes with stillness. In big cities, it might be called seasonal depression. Here, it's more than that. It's cultural, it's structural, it's climatological. You don't ask, are you okay? You ask, did you go outside today? You ask, did you eat? Because here, well-being is measured in movement, in routine, in warmth maintained. Mental health is not openly discussed, not in most homes, but it is felt. It is seen. It is cared for in gestures. A neighbor brings you soup. Your mother insists you come over for dinner. A friend texts, walk with me? These are not small things. They are lifelines. And then there's the loneliness. In Yakutsk, isolation is not always chosen. Sometimes it's built in. Entire days pass without leaving the apartment. Entire weeks where your world shrinks to walls and windows. You watch the snow fall. The cars idle. The sky refuse to change. You wait, not for spring, but for something. A call. A voice. A sound other than the heater groaning in the corner. For some, this solitude is meditative. For others, it's crushing. And yet, rarely do people say, I feel alone. They say, it's been a quiet week. They say, I miss the noise. They say, the sky hasn't shifted. And in those phrases, you hear it. The ache, the slow erosion of spirit that doesn't show up in fevers or rashes, but in the way someone stops playing music, stops cooking, stops opening curtains. The antidote? Small things. A shared drink. A game of cards. A knock at the door with no reason. Yakutsk understands this. Its people live with these risks. Not just the frozen road or the faulty boiler, but the silence that gets inside. And so, community becomes medicine. Not therapy, necessarily, but presence. An older woman notices a boy hasn't been seen in days. She brings stew. A man hears coughing through the wall. He leaves tea outside the door. A girl posts a photo of her window, just snow. Her friend replies, mine too. Want to walk? And then they do. Not to talk, just to move, to feel air. Even cold air, because motion is life. And then there are those who don't come back. The lost ones. The ones who wandered too far. Who misjudged the wind. Who drank too much and fell asleep in the snow. The ones found in silence, they are remembered. Not always by name, but by place. This corner, someone says. That's where they don't finish. They don't need to. The cold takes, but it does not erase. Stories are told, warnings shared, candles lit. And for a while, people walk slower. They check locks. They call more often. The city leans into itself as if in mourning. But then the routines return. Because this is how Yakutsk survives. Not through denial, but through ritual. Through care that doesn't name itself. Through warmth that isn't always visible but is always there. You walk alone one evening. The air is sharp. The sky, dark. You pass a bench, empty, snow-covered. A street lamp flickers. And in that quiet, you feel it. Not fear, not sadness. Something else. A kind of sacred stillness. A reminder that every step you take, every breath you warm before it reaches your lungs, is an act of defiance. And you keep walking, because survival here is not loud. It is a whisper. And it says, you are still here. When summer arrives in Yakutsk, it doesn't walk through the door. It bursts in, wild-eyed, out of breath, dragging color and heat behind it like an escaped prisoner. There is no gentle transition, no slow melting of snowbanks, no hesitant buds, no polite announcements. One day, your breath fogs in the air. The next, the windows are flung open and you're barefoot on the balcony. It is not a season. It is a miracle. For 8, sometimes 9 months, the world has been frozen, in temperature, in tone, in time. The sky has offered nothing but gray. The snow has settled into every crevice. Your body has learned to curl inward. Your mind has grown quiet. And then suddenly, sun. And not just sunlight, but sun heat. Yakutsk, for all its bitter winters, doesn't do mild summers. The same land that freezes at 50 degrees can sizzle at 335 degrees. It feels like the earth is trying to apologize, like it knows what it put you through. And so, for a brief window, June, July, sometimes a few golden days of August, life explodes. Trees bloom in fast forward. The air smells like wet grass, pine, and sunlight hitting brick. Flowers surge from the ground like they've been waiting all year for a signal. Lilacs, dandelions, wild poppies near fences. And the people, oh, the people. They emerge like butterflies from cocoons, from coats, boots, layers. Skin appears again, not cautiously, but boldly. Shoulders, ankles, knees. Children run in shorts, laughing as if discovering their legs anew. The river, which stood like a mirror of ice for months, begins to flow. It gurgles with life. Families gather on its banks, picnicking on blankets, passing bottles, splashing water. Someone plays a guitar. Someone sings. And in the air, something unspoken, a kind of collective euphoria. Not the loud, party-fueled joy of other places, but something more like relief, like a held breath finally released. You see it in the markets. The sudden appearance of berries, strawberries, raspberries, black currants, picked that morning, sold that afternoon. People crowd the stalls, baskets in hand, knowing this won't last. In Yakutsk, summer is not wasted. Every hour counts. Gardens are planted in fast forward. Tomatoes on windowsills, herbs in buckets, carrots, cabbage, and onions in backyard patches. Children help, pressing seeds into warm earth with eager hands. Windows remain open all night. There is music from apartments, clinking glasses, quiet conversations. And the light, the glorious, disorienting light. The sun rises around 3 a.m. and barely sets. By midnight, it's still bright enough to read without a lamp. The sky glows with soft orange and lavender. Time loses meaning. You wake thinking it's morning, only to find it's barely past midnight. Sleep becomes fragmented, but no one complains. They nap when they can, because there is too much to do, too much to feel. Young couples stroll at 2 a.m., holding hands under pink skies. Teenagers ride bicycles until the birds begin singing again. Old men sit on benches, shirts open, faces tilted toward the sky, as if trying to remember every color at once. This is not summer as vacation. It's summer as salvation. But it's not without its strangeness. The body, so used to the cold, struggles to adjust. Heat feels unnatural. Swelling. Sweaty. It presses from above instead of biting from below. People fan themselves with magazines. They drag fans from closets. Some own air conditioners, but most do not. Why would they? Instead, wet towels, open doors, cold drinks. And even amid the joy, there is disorientation. You walk past someone sitting in a patch of sunlight, motionless, eyes closed, not asleep, just suspended, as if their brain is trying to store the light. You feel it too, the urge to hoard summer, to memorize it, to gather warmth not in your skin, but in your soul, because you know what's coming. And so you collect moments, the laughter of your child in a sprinkler, the smell of grilled meat, the sting of mosquito bites on your calves, the blur of bicycles in the twilight, the taste of fresh cucumbers with salt. You collect them all, as if they're charms, as if they might protect you later. And then, slowly, cruelly, it ends. The mornings are darker, the nights grow longer. You find yourself closing the window, you reach for a thicker shirt, the berries disappear first. Then the flowers wilt. Then the sandals are packed away. And in the market, the vendors are quiet again. You catch someone saying it. Snow soon. It sounds absurd, but they're right. By early September, the cold begins to creep back in. Not aggressively. Not yet, but enough to remind you. The miracle is over. And yet, something remains. In your skin. In your memory. In your pace. You move a little slower. Not from fatigue, from reverence. You talk about the summer in past tense, even before it's fully gone. That day by the river. Do you remember the lilacs? I still taste the tomatoes. And as the city tightens again, layers returning, windows shutting, days shrinking, that warmth you stored begins to flicker inside you. It's not enough to stop the cold, but it glows. A reminder that the cold is not the whole story, that under every snowdrift is soil, that under every scarf is a pulse, that in the coldest city on earth, the heat still lives, briefly, brightly, eternally, in the memory of summer. So you think you could live in Yakutsk? It's a noble thought, maybe even romantic. You imagine yourself wrapped in layers of fur, your breath steaming in the air like poetry. You see the frost on your window and call it beautiful. You dream of quiet streets, of silence, of snow falling under orange streetlights. You think, I could do this. But the truth? You probably couldn't. And not because you're weak, not because you lack courage, but because this place, this cold, stark, unyielding city, demands things most people have never had to give. Let's begin with your body. You arrive in December. The plane doors open, and you're struck instantly by air that doesn't feel like air. It feels like absence. Your nostrils sting. Your lungs flinch. The cold enters your coat, finds the gap between your glove and your sleeve, and slides in like a blade. Your fingers stop working in minutes. Your ears begin to burn. You breathe through your mouth, then realize that even your teeth ache. You blink, and your eyelashes freeze together. This isn't unpleasant. It's wrong. Your body isn't confused. It's alarmed. And that's just the beginning. You go outside, you try to walk, but the snow isn't soft. It's not the fluffy postcard kind. It's compact, hard, loud. It crunches with each step like breaking bones. The air is so dry it cracks your lips by the end of the first day. You slather on lip balm, hand cream, anything, but it doesn't help. You wake with blood on your pillow from a nosebleed caused by the dryness. You haven't even been here 24 hours. By day 3, your joints ache from tension. You haven't truly relaxed since arriving. Every movement is deliberate. Every outing a small expedition. You check your phone. Dead. The battery froze. You ask for a charger, but it's no use. It's not the battery. It's the cold. The food is strange. Good, yes, but heavy. Fatty meat. Thick, soupy, cold fish. Raw and frozen. Nothing is light. Everything is dense, because it has to be. But your stomach, used to salad and smoothies, rebels. You feel sluggish, bloated. You want fruit, you want water, you want air. Instead, you get stew and steam and the constant suffocating weight of layers. And then, the routine. You can't run outside for coffee. You can't make a quick trip. Every exit from the house is a process. Socks, boots, inner layer, outer layer, hat, gloves, scarf, mask, then another scarf. You're sweating before you open the door. But as soon as you do, you're freezing. The coat weighs 4 kilos. You wear it like armor. Because it is armor, your mood shifts. You sleep too much or not enough. You grow irritable. Small things feel hard. The zipper jams. You cry. You lose a glove. You rage. You've been here a week. And now, the silence begins to press. There is sound, yes. Wind, footsteps, the hum of heaters. But not the sound you're used to. No bustle, no spontaneity. The city moves slowly, carefully. People speak quietly. They do not hurry. They do not smile at strangers. You start to feel alone. You crave distraction. But the internet is spotty. Streaming fails. You scroll through your phone, then put it down. You go to the window. It's gray. Again. Still. You don't remember when you last saw the sun. Your sense of time falters. Was that yesterday? No, that was Monday. Today is Friday. Is it? You don't know. And now, it happens. You stop going outside. You say it's too cold. You say you'll go tomorrow. But you don't. And the walls start closing in. This is what most people never understand. The cold outside is not the real challenge. It's the cold inside, the creeping chill of isolation, of routine, of sameness, of darkness. Yakutsk doesn't just test your skin. It tests your will, your patience, your quiet. Most people crack, not loudly, not with a breakdown, but with a whisper. They stop answering messages. They stop cooking. They sit for hours watching the radiator tick. They miss noise, crowds, options. They miss ease, and they leave. Not ashamed, just aware. Aware that this city, this frozen cathedral, is not made for everyone. It's made for the stubborn, for the slow, for the ones who know how to fold warmth into small spaces, who know that silence is not emptiness, that stillness is not failure, that repetition is ritual. You ask a local, and how do you stand it? They shrug. There's nothing to stand. This is life. And that's it. This isn't a challenge to conquer. It's a reality to inhabit. Yakutsk doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your adjustment. You bend or you break. And bending takes time. Years, maybe generations. You could visit. You could last a month. You might even love it. The snow, the quiet, the surreal beauty. But to live here, to settle, to endure, that takes something else. Not strength, not bravery, but acceptance of cold, of time, of stillness. So no, you probably couldn't live in Yakutsk. And that's okay, because those who do, they're not just surviving. They're crafting a life, one layer at a time. The covers are pulled up to your chin. The pillow cradles your head. The room around you is dark, silent, the kind of silence that wraps, not isolates. The heater hums in the background, steady, familiar, and yet Your breath feels heavier, not labored, visible. You blink. There's frost on the window. You didn't notice it before. Delicate patterns, like feathers, like rivers frozen in mid-flight. Your fingers stretch from beneath the blanket, reach toward the glass, not to test the cold, but to remember it. And just like that, you're there again, back in Yakutsk. Not as a tourist, not as a guest, but as a traveler in memory. The snow crunches underfoot. The sky glows with that pale, surreal light only a polar twilight can offer. The air, sharp, dry, impossibly clean, enters your lungs like a lesson. You breathe differently here. Not from habit, from awareness. You walk slowly, not because you're tired, but because the world asks you to. There are no honking cars, no urgent footsteps, no neon signs, just snow and steam rising from chimneys, and people moving with the rhythm of those who know they belong. You pass a woman sweeping ice from her porch. She doesn't see you. She doesn't need to. She knows you're there. You nod. She nods back. That's enough. At the corner, a dog lies curled in a patch of sunlight. Its breath makes small clouds. It watches you without judgment, without curiosity, just presence. You turn. The buildings are low, wide, practical, designed not to impress, but to withstand. And yet, there's beauty in their stillness, in the way snow piles on their roofs like quiet applause. A bell chimes in the distance. You don't know where it comes from. Maybe a school. Maybe a memory. Maybe both. You stop in front of a window. Inside, a family gathers around a table. A samovar steams in the center. Children laugh, muted by glass. Someone pours tea. Someone else lights a candle. You feel a tug, not of envy, not of longing, of recognition. You were there once, maybe last winter, maybe in a story, maybe in a life you only touched briefly. But it's yours now. You keep walking. The wind picks up, but it doesn't bite. It brushes, like a farewell. You pass a market stall, empty now. But in your mind, you still see the frozen fish lined like treasures. You still hear the murmur of trade. You still smell the faint trace of berries and boiled broth. You stop at the river. The ice is thick, solid. But beneath it, water moves. Slow, relentless. Just like the people here. Just like memory. You kneel. You touch the surface. And suddenly you're falling. Not down, not through. Into warmth. Into cotton. Into bed. You're awake. Sort of. The window beside you is fogged, not frosted. The heater hums again. Your phone buzzes. A notification, a message, a world that kept turning while you slept. But you don't check it. Not yet. You close your eyes. And for a moment, a brief, impossible moment, you can still feel it. The coat on your shoulders. The weight of the cold. The hush of snow at night. The echo of boots on ice. It's not real. You know that. But you also know. Some places once entered never fully leave you. Yakutsk isn't a dream. It's a silence that waits. A frost that lingers. A breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. And now it's yours. A memory, a presence. So the next time you see frost on your window, the next time you feel silence settle into your bones, don't be afraid, just smile and say softly, I've been colder, then pull the covers tighter and let yourself drift back, if only in sleep, to the place where the cold sings quietly, where time slows, where survival becomes poetry, and where you too once walked if only for a while. Yakutsk, now part of your dreams, always waiting, never needing to be found again, because it lives in you forever.